Hey everybody, today I'm actually in Carmel, Indiana, and I'm right on the border, the eastern border of Carmel, Indiana, in a place called River Heritage Park. And so in this video, we're going to talk about just that eastern border of Carmel and kind of the western border then essentially of Fishers too. So just going to get into the details of what that's like, and when people are thinking about the two and how Fishers and Carmel connect, sometimes people are fairly surprised by it. So we're going to get into some of the details of it. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Carmel, Indiana, or living in Fishers, Indiana, or Indianapolis, Indiana, or any of the surrounding metro, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. Now, we have people reaching out to us from all over the country with questions about Carmel, Indiana, Fishers, Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and of course all the towns and the cities that surround Indianapolis. So if you have questions at all, then don't hesitate to reach out to us any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back whenever it comes time for you to make your move to Indianapolis, Carmel, Fishers, anywhere in the Indy Metro. So again, I'm in Carmel, Indiana, and I'm in River Heritage Park. And the parking lot is right here behind me, which is actually kind of a gravelly dirt parking lot. There's some sand volleyball courts over here and a playground, restrooms, not rides, like amusement park rides, but kids rides, things like that, and a little picnic area, all that kind of stuff over there. So it's a neat little park, but it's really tucked away here, and I'm not sure that many people really know about this park unless they live right here in this particular area. Just off to my left over here, this is River Road. And River Road is pretty significant because when you're talking about the border between Carmel and Fishers, River Road really runs right along that border. So anyway, Carmel is on the north side of Indianapolis, and the general southern border of Carmel is 96th Street, and the general northern border is 146th Street. Those are strange corridors sometimes. You can be on 146th Street and live on the north side of it in a neighborhood. There's several neighborhoods like this where you actually have a Carmel address rather than a Westfield address, and you have that Carmel address, but you're in Westfield schools because you're in Washington Township on the north side, and it can happen on the southern part too. And then you get down to 96th Street, the same thing can happen. So that's the general border there between Indianapolis and Carmel along 96, and Westfield and Carmel to the north at 146th Street. So they do back right up against one another. But then when you go over to the east of Carmel, and you get to Fishers, well, Fishers is sort of the same as Carmel as far as the borders are concerned. 96th Street is generally the southern border for Fishers, and you get south of that, you're getting down into Indianapolis. You get up to 146th Street, and then north of that, you're essentially in Noblesville. So again, those corridors are a little bit strange. It's a little fuzzy right through there, the borders between Noblesville and Fishers, or Fishers and Indianapolis, but generally speaking, that's what we think of with the borders. Now, when you're talking about how they all connect with one another, because a lot of people will say, and this is my experience too, that oftentimes if you're driving from Carmel into Westfield, or Fishers into Noblesville, or Noblesville, let's say, over to Westfield, maybe not so much with that one, but generally speaking, when you're driving from one of those cities to the other, is that you can't really tell that you're doing it because they're all really fairly combined with one another. You can't really tell unless you're looking at a sign to say that you're leaving something and going into something else. So there are some fairly prominent signs around to indicate that you're doing that, and you know you're leaving, as an example, going north through Carmel and into Westfield. There's a prominent sign there, pretty good indication that you're doing that. So that's a good example. But when you're looking at how Carmel and Fishers border one another, or how when you get up to the north side, even Westfield and Noblesville, it's not as dramatic there as it is in Carmel, Fishers. So Carmel on the east side and Fishers on the west side, where they join, it actually is a little harder to tell visually that you're going from one to the other because those particular parts aren't really all that populated. So when you get far, far west into Fishers, there aren't that many neighborhoods. There is very, very little in the way of commercial districts. And it's the same on the very far eastern edge of Carmel. Not many homes, not much commercial, and you get a lot of places that look just like what I'm in here right now. A lot of trees, it's actually really pretty. If you do find some homes, they tend to be older and they've been here a little while. There are a few little new construction neighborhoods, and we're talking really, really tiny ones right along this little corridor here between Carmel and Fishers, but it's pretty rare. And the reason for that is because the major border between the two is the White River. Now, the White River is a pretty nice sized river. It's a river, but it's not a navigable one, so you can't take ships or anything like that down it. It's just incredibly too shallow, but it does make its way through Carmel and Fishers and then down into Indianapolis and beyond. So it's the border really between Carmel and Fishers, and so it's hard to build anything right along that river because a lot of it's floodplain. Now, that floodplain doesn't extend terribly far away from the river, so it is possible to be relatively close and have homes and neighborhoods, and because you'll definitely see that. So when you go east of where I'm standing into Fishers, it doesn't take very long to get it more populated and see more neighborhoods, and even the really highly commercial area near 116th and Allisonville Road, or you go just a little bit east of that and you get right into downtown Fishers. I mean, that is not that far off from here. That's only a mile and a half. Not too far away from this area. And it's the same with Carmel. If you go west of here, it doesn't really get very commercial for a little while, but it gets very residential. So you'll see lots of neighborhoods, lots of homes, just a short distance from here to the west, maybe a mile, maybe a little bit less than that, honestly. But as you follow this river, it's not like it's abandoned land at all. You get places like said right here with this park, but also there's some golf courses just to the north of me. There's Plum Creek Golf Course. There's one of my favorites in the entire area. There's Prairie View Golf Course, which goes right along the White River in Carmel. And then if you just jump over the river, not that you would jump over it, swim over it, drive over it, whatever, but you get on the opposite side of it, on the east side, then you get into Fishers, and there's PRAIRIE right there, which is a living history museum. They have that you can visit and get into anything associated with that, but they also have a balloon there. It's a historical balloon that it's on a tether. You can go up and for a few minutes and come back down. They have that running throughout most of the year. So even in the colder months, they typically have that running, but it's really popular right now where this is being filmed. This is in the summer, but they also have their amphitheater there, and Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra plays there, and they have other bands. I mean, it's a super, super cool thing to do, to sit out on the lawn and see a concert there at PRAIRIE during the summer, during the season of June, July, August, September. That's typically when their season runs. So you have some really cool places like that along the river and the border between the two, but it's a little bit misleading because this isn't exactly what all of Fishers and all of Carmel are really like. And it is difficult to tell that you're going from one into the other. So if you're not from here at all and you're in Fishers and you drive down 116th Street to the west to go to Carmel, you're gonna notice just things begin to, and I'm talking about homes and the commercial area, it starts to just fizzle out and disappear, and there really isn't anymore. Then you cross the river and it continues that feel until you get deeper into Carmel, and then the residential neighborhoods and some of the commercial areas, they start to pop back up. So that White River you'd have crossed, and 116th Street, just as an example, that's one of the only places that you can do it. So that's another thing that makes it a really hard border between the two, is that 116th Street, there's a bridge across the White River to go from Carmel to Fishers or back the other direction. And then down at 96th Street, there's a bridge. And then at 146th Street, there's a bridge. So some of the other major east-west streets, call them major, but ones that I travel on quite a bit, and then other people that are around this area travel on quite a bit too, like 131st, 126th, and 106th. Those streets, you can't cross the White River. It's going to end somewhere going east to west before it gets to the river. 106th Street is a really good example in Fishers. It's a major street that connects an awful lot of residential neighborhoods, but it ends before it gets to the White River, before it even comes close to it, actually. So, but then it'll pick back up over in Carmel and in a residential neighborhood, actually, and continue on to the west. But there will be a gap somewhere in there because you just can't get across that hard stop. So when you're taking a look at Carmel and Fishers, they definitely are large enough to have different feels in different parts of the cities. Carmel, without a doubt, has an East Carmel and a West Carmel, even though that's not an official designation. But if you go over to West Carmel, it's going to feel very different than East Carmel. East Carmel feels a lot more like this. It feels older, it feels more established, it feels more wooded, so a lot more trees. you'll have neighborhoods that are a lot more mature, and you get into West Carmel, it feels much more new because it is so much more new. So the trees are smaller, the houses are newer, and it's not that it's not nice, it's exceptionally nice. So when you get over there, some of the neighborhoods that are being built over there are incredible. But East Carmel, also incredible too. You can have a lot more homes that are old and need some repair, but you have a lot that have gone through those renovations and are absolutely outstanding. So very different feel. And then Fishers is a little bit the same way. The west part of Fishers is older Fishers. So if I were to cross the river, I'd be right there in old Fishers, and you have a lot of the older homes. And then you get down into eastern Fishers, and that's where it feels a little bit more new. Although we're talking new, meaning 90s, 2000s. A lot of the expansion of Fishers happened during that time period. So a lot of the homes are of that particular vintage. And you get into the western part of Fishers, the homes are older, and that's actually though where downtown Fishers is. And old downtown Fishers have been around a long time, and a lot of the renovations and a lot of the new construction that's happening there right now, that's very recent, inside the past 10 years. So the homes though in that particular area are still of that 60s, 70s, 80s vintage and have been there quite a while. And the sizes, of course, are gonna be quite a bit smaller than what you'd have in a place like East Fishers, where things are a lot newer from the 90s and 2000s. So you're definitely gonna see some differences between the two. And this, where I'm standing, is that border between both cities. And it is just a really unusual feel compared to what you have when you actually get deeper into Carmel or you get deeper into Fishers, where a lot more of that commercialization and a lot more of the residential neighborhoods are located. So if you have any questions at all about Carmel or Fishers or Indianapolis or any of the surrounding cities, then don't hesitate to reach out. And until the next one, we'll see you later.